Hello, and welcome to Teacher Talk. I'm your host, Kelly C. Let's head into the planning room and find out what the hot topic of discussion is for today. Well, it sounded like the hot topic for today is data-driven instruction. Oh, there's so many numbers and so many charts. What do I do with all this data? Have you ever felt this way? If you are a teacher, I'm sure you have. The word data can provoke cold sweats and panic attacks in the best of us. Data does not have to be labor-intensive, tedious, or even overwhelming. On today's show, we're going to look at 10 essential things that will turn your students' assessment results into everyday successful lessons. Data can be used to identify students' learning needs. Teachers should study assessment results to formulate strategies for teaching the core standards. Data usage provides for the best differentiated approach to teaching. Once you know a student's strengths and weaknesses, you can personalize their learning program. The data are valued in the classroom, not for grading or judging, but for helping to create those aha moments where learning really happens. Data can be used for instructional planning. It is important to collect a variety of data about student learning. The more data you have, the broader the picture of the student. Use the data to develop strategies to improve student learning. For example, if a student's scores are low in sequencing on a reading assessment, they will need extra practice with sequencing and comprehension. But they may also be causing a student to struggle with sequencing through their math concepts. So you will also need to boost their sequencing through their math classes. In other words, regardless of the subject area you teach, be sure to look at all of a student's assessment records to gain a more complete picture. Data can be used for instructional grouping and regrouping. Today we're honored to have Joel Rose here with us from the School of One to speak with us about data-driven instruction. First of all, Joel, could you just tell us a little bit about how the School of One is different from a traditional public school?
Sure. Well, in a traditional public school classroom, a teacher is teaching a particular grade level curriculum from the first day to the last day. And nearly all the instruction happens from the teacher. In the School of One, we're taking students where they are beginning, whatever grade level that happens to be, whatever skill they're next ready to learn. And they get some of their instruction from a live teacher, some of it online, some of it with virtual tutors, and some of it in collaborative groups.
That sounds great. And apparently you assess them at the end of each day on what they had learned just that day?
That's right. We take assessments every day, and that data actually helps inform each student's schedule the next day.
And how are the teachers involved in changing up that instruction?
Quite a bit. So every day our technology looks at all the data and comes up with a recommendation for which types of lessons would be most effective for each student. The teachers can review that and make changes to those recommendations before we publish the final schedules.
Well, since most of us are not privileged right now to be in a great school like School of One, how could a teacher in a traditional classroom incorporate some of these techniques into their strategies?
Well, I think that the most important thing to do is to have a very clear understanding of the individual levels that students are on. You may be teaching 7th grade, but you may have students that have gaps that go back to 4th and 5th grade. So really understanding that and trying to implement strategies that can both teach the curriculum you have to teach, while also at the same time trying to fill those gaps. That's really the challenging work, but that's the most important work that can be done.
That is the most important, and that's what we're working on here with our episode of Teacher Talk. Thanks, Joel.
Thank you.
Data can be used to evaluate the success of an instructional program. Many researchers will tell you that it's never their program, it's always the people. That may or may not be true, but what is always certain is that teachers must be confident in the programs they use in order to see achievement. Before determining the success of any given program, a few questions need to be addressed. Was the program followed prescriptively, or was it adapted to fit our current instructional techniques? Are there portions of this program that I need to differentiate for my students? And of course, does this program meet the developmental needs of my students? You need to know the difference in norm-referenced and criterion-referenced assessments. Norm-referenced tests compare the achievement of students with that of their peers nationwide. Criterion-referenced tests measure student progress toward meeting specific benchmarks and standards. Today we're here at the Florida Center for Reading Research, and we're privileged to have with us Dr. Barbara Foreman, who's going to talk to us a little bit more about norm-referenced and criterion-referenced assessment data. Dr. Foreman, could you go ahead and explain to us the difference between norm-referenced and criterion-referenced?
Sure, I'd be happy to. In norm-reference testing, you're interested in comparing students to a norm-reference group, either all of Florida or all of the nation. And that gives you important information to know that your students are on track compared to their age grade mates. Criterion reference is reference to a set of skills so that a student is being compared to him or herself, so you have an idea of whether they have mastered the skills in a skill hierarchy that you're trying to master to reach proficiency.
And since we are here at the Center for Reading Research, could you give us a few examples of how that plays out with FAIR testing, which is the Florida Assessment for Instructional Reading?
Sure, I'd be happy to. The FAIR testing actually is a combination of norm-referenced and criterion-referenced. And the broad screen in the kindergarten, first, second grade, and the broad screen in the grade 3 through grade 12 have norm-referenced scores that you can use to compare students in your school with other students in Florida schools. And that we use that norm-referenced information to decide whether to go on and do further diagnostic work in the FAIR assessments, to get into vocabulary and reading or listening comprehension in K2, or to go on to the maze and the word analysis task in the 312 system.
Wonderful. It sounds like there is a lot of great information embedded in the FAIR assessment. Let's take a look at some of this information.
And so we're very fortunate that we have the coordinator of the Progress Monitoring Reporting Network here with us today, Carl Hook, who can show us some of the reports that link to these instructional resources.
So Barbara, let's go ahead and go inside the PMRN, the Progress Monitoring and Reporting Network, but please remember that the views might be different for an individual user because we're going to go in as a school level 2 user into the PMRN.
Okay.
So what I'd like to do is sign in as this teacher and take a look at a class status report. Class status report is going to primarily give you information on a norm reference. If you'd like to talk about that a little bit.
Right, so we can see the reading comprehension percentile rank. This is comparing students' ranks to each other across this, it's reference to the state of Florida. And same with the word analysis percentile ranks. And then we have the ability scores. You get a Lexile score and the Lexile range.
Now, teachers can sort this so they can look at how the students are performing, a certain group of students are performing. And one thing I'd like to mention here are these links at the top of the page here. And what these links will do is if they notice that the students are struggling in a particular area, they can click on this link and it'll take them to resources that the FCR has available.
And the other thing I want to mention about, if you go back to the other report under there,
sure,
is that the FCAT success probability is actually a criterion score because we've referenced it to a proficiency level of passing FCAT or not. The rest of these are norm reference, but that's a criterion reference score.
Okay. In order to get more detail about how the student's performing, you can click on these magnifying glass, and the magnifying glass will bring up the student score detail report.
Here we see some of the normative measures like percentile ranks, ability scores, but we also see on the maze, for example, the average adjusted Mays score, and there's 15 words correct in the 3-minute time frame of Mays. And if you go on the FCRR website, you actually see how that score relates to a criterion of what the 40th percentile of words correct per minute in 3 minutes would be. So again, we have a mixture here of criterion reference scores and normative scores. Percentile ranks and standard scores would be normative.
I'd also like to mention a report that not many teachers are aware of that will show the students' progress over time, over the 3 different assessment periods. For example, if I click on the class student progress report and want to find out about reading comprehension, I will have a series of bar graphs that show how the students' gains increased over, shows the students' gains over assessment periods 1, 2, and 3. This particular shows the gains in percentile rank, but I can change on the student's ability score, their Lexile, and their percentile rank.
Right, so the ability score is the best way to look at change over time. Is the student making progress over the year?
Okay. A moment ago we looked at a class status report for a 3rd grade class, and this would be the class status report for a 2nd grade class. There are different tasks, and again it does show the PRS, which I believe you said was a normative-based assessment.
That's right. Well, it's probability of reading success, and it predicts to a certain proficiency level on the Stanford Achievement Test. So again, that's has a criterion of proficiency involved in it, but it's criterion to a norm reference test, whereas the grades 3 through 12 is criterion to FCAT, which is more criterion referenced.
So that's interesting. So there is a difference between the PRS and the FSP in that case.
That's right.
In these other, you do see percentage accuracies, and you do have percentile ranks. And of course, percentile ranks are always considered normative based.
Right.
Yeah. And again, this can be clicked on to go to various reports. But what I'd like to go to, since we're talking about criterion based, is the TDI report,
Which is the Targeted Diagnostic Inventory report.
Now again, we're talking about normative versus criterion based, and this the TDI task with the Targeted Diagnostic Inventory, I believe, are criterion based. Is that correct?
That's correct, and it's criterion to 80% mastery of the skills in the sequence, and you can see on this report the ME meets expectations, meaning you've mastered 80% of the skills. The ones in red, BE, is below expectations, and so teachers would see those below expectations and know that they have to have instruction in those areas to help the students master those skills. And then at the next assessment period, you hope to go in and see the BEs turning into MEs.
Well, great. Let's take a look at some detail about this report for a particular student. And what this report will then do is show how the number of correct out of what number on the particular task for the various target diagnostic inventories administered to the student.
Right. So you see this student is below expectation on the phonemic awareness task, and that is a typical hallmark of a student who is struggling with reading. If they can't represent the phonemes in speech and link those up to sounds, they're going to be a struggling reader. They're also struggling with word building, which isn't surprising because if you can't do the phonemic synthesis and analysis, you're going to have trouble building words.
Let's see if there's any improvement to AP3.
Well, we see they're 4 out of 5 now. They meet expectations on the phonemic deletion task, 5 out of 5 on the final. And we come down to word building and they meet expectations. So this student has made a lot of progress across the year, and good instruction is key to that progress.
On the Target Diagnostic Inventory detail report, it will show the students that had difficulty on a specific task, the number that were below expectations and those students that were below expectations. teachers like to have resources to assist them in this intensive intervention for these students. And what this link here will do will take the teacher to resources on the FCRR website to provide them curriculum materials. I'm going to go ahead and click on that now. And it'll take them to the FCRR website.
Great. And also by listing the students who have similar profiles of strengths or weaknesses, the teacher can use that information to group the students. And then the instructional resources are right here, as you point out. So Carl Hook just told us how we find the reports in the PMRN. And now Dr. Pete Linkway from FCRR will show us how we can find the instructional resources at fcrr.org. Pete.
Okay, this is the FCRR website and the link to all the instructional materials we have.
That's fcrr.org.
Correct, at fcrr.org. And it's a search tool that teachers can bring up a variety of materials to assist them in the classroom. What I want to demonstrate here is at the secondary level and look at word analysis. And when I click show results, you'll see that if I've identified 18 resources. Some of those resources over here where it says a Learn video, that is a material produced by the Northeast Florida Educational Consortium.
Ah, NEFEC, right.
Right. This is Searchlight.
That's a UT Austin developed website.
Right. And Read, Write, Think.
And that's the International Reading Association.
Right. And the SCAs down here are the ones that were developed in-house student center activities for FCRR. Under word analysis, there's an activity here from Searchlight called semantic feature analysis.
Semantic feature analysis, or SFA, is a strategy that can be used to visually organize new concepts and related vocabulary. SFA allows you to show comparative relationships among different words related to the same concept. Let's watch a demonstration of a semantic feature analysis chart.
So again, that would go into great detail for a teacher wanting to learn more about semantic feature analysis. Learn video here, again on word stems.
Mm-hmm. And we click on what to start.
Anytime I'm working with struggling readers, one of the things that's most important for them is improving their vocabulary skills. So one of the things that I do to help with vocabulary is I work on word attack.
So that would go again at length into that topic and would provide direct one-on-one training for a teacher wanting to
and to see how it
skills.
looks, how the instruction
And
looks
to
in the
demonstrate
classroom.
it, absolutely. A Read, Write, Think activity, again, very similar. We're looking at something on structural analysis vocabulary this time. And this is the material from the International Reading Association.
Okay, is that a PDF you print?
This is going directly to their website, and now you can go there, they have an instructional plan. This is quite in-depth, it's a preview, gives standards for it. The IRA materials are quite in-depth on each of these topics.
Right,
But
so
again,
it's like a lesson plan and points out what resources you would need.
and again, this is all directly from the search tool on the FCRR website. Last thing I'd like to show you, though, is one of the ones that we've done for our student center activity called attribute analysis. And if you're familiar with the FCRR website, the student center activities had existed for K through 5. Secondary was recently added, but they follow the same pattern here and are quite well done, quite attractive, giving the objective materials. There's a demo area giving an idea of what it's going to look like when you work with the student. And then if you go to the next page, of course, there is your handout. You print that out and duplicate it, and you're ready to work with the students.
Right, so you go straight from your results on fair testing, click on a resource, and you've got a ready-made instructional activity for your classroom.
Absolutely, the materials are ready to go. And there's even a blank one, for example, if you wanted to extend the activity to other areas. Last part of our search tool I wanted to just briefly mention that's most people aren't aware of is the curriculum map component of our website. This is something recently added. And this will allow a teacher to select from one of the main adopted elementary basal series in Florida. They would pick the title of that basal, they'd pick the grade level, they'd pick the unit or theme that they're working on, for example, Unit 2, and week or lesson, Lesson 3, show results, and I'm going to get all the student center activities that go with that particular basal for those lessons to supplement that.
Great, so you're ready-made for like a small group intervention work that supplements the basal program in your classroom.
Correct, and they're again, they're the same quality student center activities that we looked at before, where it gives you the materials you needed, the demo area, and of course ready to print out the materials to use in the classroom.
Right, great.
Your school and district personnel can help you with interpreting your data. Your first step would be to contact your school-based problem-solving team to help you with interpreting your data. Of course, you should seek guidance from documentation and experts to be sure you are using data correctly. Finally, take advantage of professional development opportunities regularly and interact with other staff regarding student progress. Take advantage of all the data that you have available. Be sure to use multiple sets of related data to make all instructional decisions. Begin your year with data from the previous year, including both FCAT scores and FAIR data if available. As the year progresses, however, incorporate more student-centered assessments into your planning, including curriculum-based unit tests, class projects, classwork and homework, attendance records, records from parent meetings and phone calls, classroom behavior charts, individualized educational plans, or IEPs, and prior data from a student's cumulative folders. Teach your students how to interpret their own data.
Students are best prepared to learn from their own achievement data when they receive the data in a user-friendly format and when they understand the learning objectives. Tools such as rubrics provide students with a clear sense of learning objectives, and data presented in an accessible and descriptive format can illuminate students' strengths and weaknesses. It is helpful to explain expectations and assessment criteria to students prior to testing. Following testing, provide feedback to students that is timely, specific, well-formatted, and constructive. Set up tools that help students learn from feedback such as charts, portfolios, and incentives for increased performance. Guiding students to understand assessment tools and analyze their own feedback puts students at the forefront of the school's culture of data use.
Establish a clear vision for a school-wide data usage plan. A clear vision for school-wide data use will always promote educational success. Schools must establish a strong culture of data use to ensure that data-based decisions are made frequently, consistently, and appropriately. This data culture should emphasize collaboration across and within grade levels and subject areas to diagnose problems and refine educational practices. It is also helpful to develop a shared vocabulary among school staff to help minimize misunderstandings and conflicting assumptions. Some critical concepts to define as a school should include achievement, evidence, and progress. Under achievement, you may look at whether or not your school applies the state-offered standardized tests, and what else would qualify as a measuring tool. Evidence you might collect should be determined for what kind of meaning you have for the word evidence. Progress should include, should progress monitoring be implemented with individuals, students, or an entire class? And how often should student progress be addressed? A clear vision for school-wide data use will always promote educational success. Know when to refer to your data. Teams of teachers should regularly meet to analyze student data, examine student work and teacher assignments, and reach a consensus on what proficient performance looks like at their grade level. As students move from grade to grade, teachers need concrete information about where the student was when they left the previous grade to plan effective instruction. By taking collective responsibility as a member of your school's problem-solving team, you can ensure success for your students through core instruction and behavior supports.
Now we are clearly focused on achievement of children, and central to that, the way we measure and the way we analyze and try to decide what is working for children, what's not working for children, is critical to our work. And so data becomes very important, and it has to be modeled and
The National Center of Educational Evaluation and Regional Assistance defines data-based decision-making in education as teachers, principals, and administrators systematically collecting and analyzing various types of data, including demographic, administrative, process, perpetual, and achievement data, and guide a range of decisions to help improve the success of students and schools. So, jump into those data books and remember that communication is key. We'll be listening for more hot topics to chat about next time on Teacher Talk. Hot topic of today's conversation. No, I didn't like that. Okay. No, I'm good. Hello, and welcome to All right, let's try. Hello, and welcome to Teacher Talk. I'm your host, Kelly C. Let's head into the teacher planning room. Let me do that again.
Students are best prepared to learn from their own achievement data when they user-friendly format and when they understand their learning objectives.
So what's happening here? What we get over on that side? What's happening?
They understand the learning objectives.